Bruce Lipton, I am so honored to have you as a guest on my podcast, and also to have you come to my country, Denmark, and visit again. It's such an honor because you have meant so much for so many people, both here and around the world. So thank you so much.
Well, I really want to thank you, Kirsten, because the honor is mine to be here with you for a simple reason. I know that when we did have a short get-together when I was in Copenhagen previously, but more importantly, I think your direction with the podcast and the opportunity to give a message to a world that's in a state of need right now. We're facing an evolutionary challenge, and it's not an evolution of a physical evolution. It's a consciousness evolution. So we don't have to go change our genes. We just have to change our thoughts. And that's a lot easier.
Yeah, and that is, and you've been one of the pioneers that were one of the first ones, at least I heard about, and that many people heard about, who talked about this, you know, that we can actually change the world from the inside out. So tell me a little bit about, how did you get into that idea that we can change the world from our thoughts?
Well, basically, when I started my career as a scientist, I was a conventional scientist and had the belief that a human body is a physical machine, and it's here and it's alive, and then it dies, and then it goes back into pieces, and that's the end of your experience. But through my research on stem cells, on cloning stem cells, the cells taught me a bigger insight. And the bigger insight is this: I'm not controlled by genetics. I'm controlled by my consciousness. That my genes respond to my consciousness rather than my consciousness responding to my genes. It's the other way around. Most people have the belief that they're victims of their heredity, meaning if there's cancer running in their family or some disease, they think, oh my goodness, I'm going to have that gene and then I'm going to get the same thing, which is the victim experience. My genes control me, I don't control them. But with working with the cells, I started to learn from them that the genes were not controlling themselves, but they were controlled by the environment in which the cells were present. And I say, well, relevant to that is that the cells inside your body, we look in the mirror and see ourselves as one single entity. I go, that's an illusion, because the human body is made out of 50 trillion cells. The cells are the living entity. When I say Bruce, that's not a single entity, that's a single community of 50 trillion cells. And my research started to reveal a very important fact, that the genes were really controlled by the environment in which my cells live. And I say, but that is from my consciousness, which is actually controlling what you say, the composition of the blood. My brain is adjusting my blood with chemistry to deal with my life experience. The blood goes to the cells, and the composition of the blood controls the genetics. So if I change my consciousness, I change the chemistry of the blood, and in turn, I changed the control of the cell, the genetics of it. So this became important because it says, oh my goodness, I'm not a victim of my genes. I'm the one that's controlling them. But I have to be careful, because my consciousness is what's being translated by my body into information that the cells read. And once it started happening, it's like, oh, well, wait a minute, I can change consciousness. I go, yeah. Oh, well, then you can change the character of your life. You can change your genetic activity. It's like, oh, and all of a sudden then I'm not a victim, I'm actually a master, but I didn't know it. And if you don't know it, then all of a sudden there's a problem, because you don't know that your thoughts are controlling your genetics. And if you don't know that, then you don't recognize that the vast majority of our thoughts are negative and disempowering. And so day by day, we keep bringing ourselves down with negative thinking. And now some people say, oh, positive thinking, that's an old new agey thing. And I go, no, let me give you a simple example. For 75 years, medicine has acknowledged something called the placebo effect. And the placebo effect is someone's sick, their physician shows them, oh, here's the newest pill. It's the greatest, newest revolution in pills. It's going to heal you. And you believe this, so you take the pill and you get better, but find out the pill was a sugar pill. And that's called the placebo effect. And so the point was very simple. What healed you? Not the sugar pill. It was the belief in the sugar pill. And it was a positive belief because this belief was going to heal me. So my belief was, I'm going to be healed, and then I get healed. And everyone goes, okay, that's placebo effect. And I said, well, that is an expression of positive thinking. And while everyone goes, yeah, I go, yeah, but you know what you didn't understand was negative thinking is equally powerful in shaping your life, but in the opposite direction of health. Negative thinking can cause any disease. Negative thinking can cause you to die. If you believe you're going to die and you really believe it, then you can die just based on your belief. So point about it is this: yes, positive thinking is very helpful and heals us. Negative thinking we've ignored. We haven't paid any attention. It's just like, you can have negative thoughts. I go, oh, because negative thoughts are working just like positive thoughts and controlling you, but as mentioned, in the opposite direction, taking you away from health and happiness and harmony. So all of a sudden it says, oh, well then darn it, we should really be careful about our thoughts. And I go, yeah, they're the ones that are shaping us, and these thoughts just run randomly in our head, so we don't really pay attention. I didn't even notice them myself until I started to become aware of, oh my goodness, my subconscious is playing programs, and I didn't even pay attention to them until one day I'm driving and I stop at a stoplight, and as I'm waiting for the light to change, I can hear this dialogue going on in my head. Well, this isn't going to work, and that can't happen. I'm going, wait a minute. My thoughts are all conflicting with my life. And I thought, oh, wait a minute, my thoughts are controlling my genes. It's like, I got to be careful. I have to be aware, because I didn't recognize that I'm manifesting, creating a life based on my thoughts. And most people have no idea of it. And the problem is that most of the thoughts that we were programmed with are disempowering anyway. So when you are in that thought mode, you're not enhancing your life, you're frequently sabotaging your life. And so all of a sudden it says, well, what are my thoughts? And I go, well, stop and listen sometime, because they're always running, and not all of a sudden I can hear this tape running through my head like I'm watching the light, and it's like, where's this conversation going? It's like, it's not going very well, because almost all of it was negative. So at some point it's like, oh my goodness, I have to be careful. I have to recognize that my thought is being translated into my biology, and therefore I have to be overseeing my thoughts, because if I'm not paying attention, I'm just running a tape. And most of the program in that tape is very negative.
So it's actually being a leader, literally a thought leader, leading your thoughts.
Yeah,
because otherwise you'll be led by your thoughts.
Yeah, and then, so to take this out of a new age, no, this is not just a new age idea. This is a biological reality. And basically, the simple experiment that led me there was I was growing stem cells in culture, and stem cells are embryonic cells in your body that can form anything. That because every day, out of the 50 trillion cells that make up a human body, every day, hundreds of billions. I could say the number, but hundreds of billions, that's like so many cells are dying every day, just normally. And you have stem cells because if you're here listening to me, then by definition, you must have replaced all those dying cells. And that's the job of stem cells. So they're embryonic cells. And so simply what my experiment was, I put one stem cell in a tissue culture dish. It divides every 10 hours. So first there's one, then there's 2, 4, 8, 16, doubling. At the end of the week, I have 30,000 cells in the Petri dish. The most important insight is that they're all genetically identical because they only came from one parent. So I have 30,000 genetically identical cells, but the experiment was I split the cells into 3 different Petri dishes. So I have three dishes. All the dishes have genetically identical cells. But I changed the chemical composition of the growth medium. That's how we grow cells in a laboratory. And we put growth medium, a fluid, and the cells grow in this fluid. And I said, but what is growth medium? I say, laboratory version of blood. So if I grow human cells, I say, okay, let's make growth medium, look at human blood composition and make it, and then feed the cells. But since I'm making it, I can also adjust the changes here and there. So I created 3 different culture media, slightly different chemistry, okay? So genetically identical cells, but each culture dish, each of the three had a different culture medium, a different version of blood, let's say, okay? And in dish one, the cells form muscle, and dish two, the cells form bone in a different environment. And in dish cells form fat cells. And the significance is very profound because I was teaching in medical school that genes control life. And in my laboratory, the cells revealed to me that they were being controlled by the chemical composition of the culture medium. And you go, well, that's neat. And I go, yeah, because genes didn't control themselves. They were controlled by the culture medium. And I say, wait, culture medium is the equivalent of blood. My body is a skin-covered petri dish because underneath are 50 trillion cells in this skin dish, but it has culture medium called blood. And then I go, it doesn't make a difference if the cell is in a plastic dish or a skin dish. The fate is controlled by the culture medium. In the lab, my synthetic version, but in my body is my blood. And then I go, oh, well, then what controls the chemistry of my blood? Because that's going to control my genetics. That's what the research showed. Then I said, oh, wait a minute. The brain is the chemist that determines what chemicals go in the blood. And then I go, biggest and most important question. So what chemicals should the brain put in the blood? And the answer is amazing because it basically says this: whatever thoughts are in my mind, the brain translates that into complementary chemistry and then releases that into the blood. So my thoughts are controlling my biology. Change my thoughts, change the chemistry, change the fate of the cells. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, the genes don't control me. I am controlling them by my thoughts. So simple experiment understanding is, if I have a picture of love in my head, love has chemistry connected to it that is like dopamine, pleasure. So when you're in love, the brain releases chemistry of, pleasure. You can feel, oh, I'm in love. It's so good. But it also releases oxytocin, which is a bonding chemical, which causes me to bond to where my love is coming from. I also release something called vasopressin from the brain, which makes me more attractive to my partner so that love stays there. And most important, growth hormone is released when you're in love. But growth hormone says what it is. It enhances your growth. So I say, guess what? You fall in love, picture of love in your mind, brain releases chemistry that is a complement of that, pleasure and growth and all that. And I say, that you can see when people are in love, they glow, they're healthy, they're vibrant. I go, that wasn't an accident. That was a translation of love into chemistry, which affects my genes. And everybody goes, oh, yeah. And I go, well, wait. I open up my eyes and I see something that scares me. The image of fear does not release love chemistry in the blood. It releases stress chemicals in my blood. And the stress hormones then change the fate of my cells and my genetics. So basically, every time I have a thought, the chemistry is complementary to the thought. So there's profound difference between a positive thought and a negative thought. And there's a profound difference in the biology of a person who is in positive thought versus a person who walks around all day in a negative thought, because the signals coming from the brain are redirecting the function of the cells. And all of a sudden I said, well, then my fate is not determined by my genes. I go, no. It's determined by your consciousness. And when we change consciousness, we change the character of our lives.
And our fate. So can this theory also explain, sometimes you see this phenomenon that an illness can pass on from generation to generation, or you even see psychological pattern repeating itself, like an angry grandparent getting an angry child, getting an angry grandchild, where you're like, this is like the same pattern, psychological pattern repeating. Is that also explained by this?
Right, because for the longest time we thought, well, the patterns that repeat, because the only thing we saw were genes that make programs, It was just believed, oh, if a pattern was repeating, then there was a gene for that program that is repeating itself. And again, so there's cancer in the family. So the belief is, oh, there must be genes passed down from one generation to the next, and the cancer is being expressed. Now, here's a profound change of everything, because they looked at the fate of children who were adopted into families where there was cancer. And it turns out the adopted child will get the same family cancer as any of the natural siblings, but the adopted child has totally different genetics. And it's like, well, then how did the cancer get there? And the answer was, it is not expressed through genes. It is expressed through programming. And we all get programs. And I said, okay, first of all, why should we have programs? And so I'll give a simple understanding. I get a computer, brand new computer. It's got an operating system. I open the lid, I push start, it boots itself up. Now I say, do something with the computer. And I say, do you have a program? Do you have a write program or a spreadsheet or an art program? Because if you have a program, you can use a computer to do the program. But what if you get a computer and there's no program in it? What can you do with it? Nothing. So a child's brain is developing. It is analogous to a computer. But if there's no programs, then so nature creates the first 7 years to download programs in the child mind. And the reason is this, how many rules does it take?
Can you just repeat that? How many years? Because the sound broke up a little bit. So you say it takes how many years to break down, to inherit a pattern?
Okay, when a child is born, the first 7 years of their life, the brain is in record, just like a video recorder. It looks around. Everything it sees is a recording. So it sees the mother's behavior. Okay, that's how that behavior. Father's behavior. Yep, I download that. Family behavior, community behavior. I'm recording. Why? I have no program, but now I know how to behave to be a mother. Oh, I know how to behave to be a father. Why? I copied them. And I go, well, this is cool. This is how you got the programs into the machine. Your first 7 years, your brain is in record mode. I go, well, what's the relevance? And then here's the problem. Because science has recognized that 70% of the programs that we have recorded in that 7 years are disempowering or self-sabotaging or beliefs that limit who we are. So your subconscious is not filled with great programs to manifest health, happiness, and love. It's really got a lot of negative programs in there. We didn't pick the program, we just recorded. So the child's brain does not express consciousness, creativity, until age 7. So I say, so the first 7 years is to put the programs in, write, draw, social programs, family programs, all these. And then by age 7, now the conscious mind can operate using the programs and create a life. Now, the big problem is this. The conscious mind is indeed creative. It could think of anything, positive, negative. It can think of anything and create. The subconscious is just playback. It's sort of like a record a behavior, push the button and play it back. Now, a lot of people think the subconscious, where these programs are, is evil. I go, no. It's a machine. It just records a program and plays it back. Give you an example of a great program. When did you learn how to walk? Before you were 2. How old are you now? I don't care. You could be 100 years old. You're still walking. I said, where'd you learn how to walk? When I was 2. I say, my goodness, isn't it great? Your subconscious for 98 years has a program in it, and you know how to walk. Yeah. So subconscious programs are not all bad. But if you do get a disempowering program, it's in there as well for as long as the walking program is in there, okay? So the issue is this. We need the program to get started. And one day the program, creative conscious mind kicks in, which is different than subconscious mind. Subconscious is habit, how to walk, habit, okay? Conscious mind's creative, wishes and desires. I go, okay, great. Now let's don't operate from subconscious. Let's just operate from conscious, because that's the good one. That's got the wishes and desires of what I want. And I go, great. One problem, and the big problem. The conscious mind is creative, yes, and it kicks in at age 7. Yes, we can use that to make wishes and desires. But the conscious mind can think. Like, what does that mean? I say, thinking is not looking out your eyes. Thinking is going inside your head. So I say, okay, Kirsten, tell me what you're doing on Saturday at 2 o'clock. Well, if it's not written right down in front of you, I say, where are you going to get the answer? You say, oh, I'm going to think of the answer. I'll go into my head. I say, if consciousness, consider your body a vehicle with a steering wheel and the mind is driving it, okay? If consciousness starts thinking, it's not looking out the window anymore. It's going inside looking for an answer. So I say, well, if I'm driving my car, I'm paying attention, I'm looking out the window, I'm watching the traffic, I'm paying attention, but all of a sudden I start thinking, oh, when I get to the store, I'm going to get this and I'm going to get that. And I'm saying, oh, you're thinking. I say, where's the conscious mind? I said, it let go of the wheel. It went inside. Then I said, does that mean your car crashed? I go, no, because at some point you look out the window and go, hey, I'm still here. I'm still driving. No problem. Point, and this is the message. When the conscious mind lets go of the wheel and starts thinking, subconscious programming is autopilot. It will step in and grab the wheel. Well, it works off of habits. Do you know how to drive a car? Yes, you created the habit. So you can let go of the wheel with the conscious mind. The subconscious mind steps in, autopilot, knows how to drive the car. But you don't see it because you went inside, so you let go. And now subconscious is driving the car. I go, oh, so when I'm thinking, my conscious mind is not controlling my life at that moment because my conscious mind is inside looking for some answers, okay? And then I say my life is controlled by the program. And then I go, geez, here's a problem. 70% of those programs are negative and sabotaging and limiting. And I say, so that means when you're thinking, you lose power because now your subconscious is in control. And now comes the number that's scary. 95% of an average person's life is controlled by the subconscious because that's how much time we spend thinking. When you are thinking, you let go of the control and the program takes over.
That is scary.
It occupies 95% of the life. So now there's a problem. You're not creating your life with your conscious mind's wishes and desires. It's spending most of the time inside thinking about what you did, what you will do, where you've been, where you're going, whatever. And I say, well, then life is not being controlled by the conscious mind, which is creative with wishes and desires. Life is being controlled by the autopilot, subconscious programs, most of which are negative. And then I say, well, what does that mean? I say, well, simple. You're not controlling your life. Your program is controlling your life. Yeah, but what if your program's negative? I said, well, then all you see is the negative experience of life. And this is where people have a problem because you wake up in the morning and say, today is the day I'm going to get healthy. Today is the day I'm going to find love. Today is the day I'm going to do a great job. That's wishing. That's conscious activity. But once you start to go out into the world and you start thinking, the life isn't coming from the wishes of the conscious mind, it's coming from the program. And most of those programs, I said, will sabotage you. They take away your power. And I say, so why is it relevant? Because only 5% of the day are you ever going toward where you want to go. But 95% of the day, autopilot is taking you in a different direction. Now comes the issue. Well, wouldn't I see it if I was sabotaging myself? And I go, no. And the reason why is, where's your conscious mind? It's inside. So if you're sabotaging yourself, the conscious mind cannot see it because it's busy thinking. All you see is the result, meaning I got up in the morning with great wishes, but I come home at night and none of it worked. And then all of a sudden, what do I think about that? And I said, well, what happened? You say, well, I wanted to be successful, but it didn't work. So the universe is against me. Nature is against me. Fate is against me. I go, no, you didn't even see that all day long. You were sabotaging yourself because the subconscious programs that were running 95% of the day do not empower you. And Kirsten, there's a story I've said 30 plus years, same story. So you probably heard it when I was in Copenhagen the last time, but it's the best story. That's why it's the same story for 30 years. I go, you have a friend, you know your friend's behavior very well, and you happen to know your friend's parent. And one day you see your friend has the exact same behavior as their parent. So you want to tell your friend, you know, you go like, hey, Bill, you're just like your dad. And then I say, you back away from Bill. Because Bill is going to say, how can you compare me to my dad? I'm nothing like my dad. And everyone laughs because they know the
You know, it's true.
They've experienced it. And I go, let me give you the reason why it's so important. Everybody else can see that Bill behaves like his dad. The only one who doesn't see it is Bill. I said, how does that work? I go, he downloaded the behavior of his father in the first 7 years in his subconscious. But when he's playing the subconscious, why is he playing subconscious? The answer is because his conscious mind's thinking. So when he's playing his father's behavior, his conscious mind's not observing it. It's inside with thought. The only thing he sees is the result. My life didn't work, and I don't know why. It was like, well, because invisible, 95% of the day, the behavior you've been operating with came from other people, and it doesn't answer your wishes and your desires. All you see is that your wishes and desires are a struggle to get there. And the struggle is because 95% of the day, you're not even operating from the creative mind, you're operating from the program, which is negative. So, time to change the game.
Yeah, I mean, my next question is, what is the way out?
Well, let's simplify something, because here's the biggest problem. I got programmed from the last trimester of pregnancy because a fetus can learn. If a mother plays music through the abdominal wall every day, when the fetus is born, now it's a child, and the music is played, the baby will immediately know the music because it's heard it for the last trimester. Or, you know, if the father talks to the baby through the abdominal wall, when the baby is born and the father says anything, the baby will know which voice is the father, okay? So it learned. So it starts before you're born and it goes through age 7, okay? And this is when the programs are installed. But here comes the problem. So what is the program you got at 0? I don't know. Well, okay, what was the program you got at 1? No, I don't know that either. Okay, 2. No, I don't really remember any program. Why? Because consciousness wasn't even working, so you have no idea. So now we got a big problem in one sense. I'm being run by a program that I got from last trimester of pregnancy to for age 7, but I don't know the program because they were downloaded before I was aware. So I don't even know my own program. So now let's answer that and help everybody instantly without going to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I'm going to tell you about your program because you already know what your program is. I go, what? Here it is. 95% of your life is coming from subconscious programming, as I said, because that's how much time we're thinking. Then all of a sudden, your life is a printout of your program. So basically, I say a very simple question. I say, oh, actually a statement. It goes like this. The things you like that come into your life, they come into your life because you have a program to let them come into your life. But, and this is the big but, the things you desire and wish for, but you have to work hard for, struggle over, put a lot of effort into making it happen, sweat over it to make it happen. Question, why are you working so hard to get there? Answer, inevitably, whatever program you got in the first 7 years does not support that conclusion. So you're trying to create a life that your subconscious doesn't support. And since the subconscious is working 95% of the day, and the subconscious is 1,000,000 times more powerful a computer than the conscious, when you do the math, it's like, yep, my life is not under my control. It's under the control of the program. And I didn't even know I had a program, but all I see is the struggle. And I go, the struggle did not come from the universe. The struggle came from our own invisible subconscious programming. So now I say, so what do you want to change in your life? I say, well, the thing that you struggle with, you don't want to struggle with that. So I say, So what would be if you had your belief correct, what belief would you have in that situation? Well, let's say I wanted to be in a relationship. So the belief I'd have to carry is I am lovable. If I am lovable, then people will love me. Okay, biggest problem now that we're talking to people, here's the fact is this. When I was involved in doing workshops where we do belief change, it was interesting because one of the first beliefs I asked people to test for is the belief I love myself. Over 80% of every audience will not test positive to I love myself. I go,
oh my God.
this is very critical, because if you're programming, just think of the logic. If I can't love myself and then you come up and say you love me, I have to go, I'm sorry, you don't have quality control. Because if you did, you could see that I'm not lovable because I know I'm not lovable. And so I can't believe that you love me because I'm not lovable. And what will I do? I will push you away. And when you leave, guess what my mind will say? See, I told you were not lovable. That person just left. And I go, but you didn't see, you pushed them away to fulfill the program. If my program is I'm not lovable, how can anyone love me? Because that would be a violation of the program. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I say, and why do we have answers?
And why do we have what?
The programming that parents gave us. Why do we have so much trouble loving ourselves? Mm-hmm. And the answer is, during that first 7 years, parents act like a coach on a sports team. Point. A player on the team isn't performing well. What is the coach going to say? The coach isn't going to say, oh, please try harder. The coach is going to say, come on, you can do better than that. That's not good enough. You don't deserve to be on this team. It's like pushing the player to do better. So the player goes, oh, guess I got to work harder because the coach says I'm not working hard enough. So the coach criticizes the player, and the player, old enough, over 7, understands that, oh, the coach is saying that because I can do better and I'm not, okay? Now I say, what's the problem? Parents act like a coach. If the child isn't doing well, the parents go, come on, that's not good enough. You're not that smart. You don't deserve this. Who do you think you are? And I say, well, why would they say these things? Because it's like a coach. I want the child to do better. And I go, now here's the problem. If the child is under 7, they're not conscious and understand what you mean. They're in a state of record. They just took your words and recorded them, and that became a program. Like what? I'm not good enough. I do not deserve. I am not lovable. These are words that they just downloaded. And I go, well, what's the problem? I said, well, that's now a program in the subconscious. And 95% of the day, those programs are going to play. I said, what does it mean? I said, let's say my parents, emotionally a few times yelled at me because I was throwing a tantrum. And they wanted me to, you don't deserve that toy. I record, I do not deserve. That's my recording. Now I'm 50 years old. And 95% of the day I'm playing programs. What's one of the programs? I do not deserve. So I said, well, what kind of behavior would that program make? And I go, it will create a problem where I'll sabotage my life. So in the end, when I don't get something, it's true. I do not deserve. See, it's true. My program said I do not deserve, and I sabotage my life, and then I don't get it. And then I go, yep, see, program was right. I do not deserve. Let me put this little outline, this box. This is critical. The function of the mind is to create coherence between what we believe and the reality that we experience. In other words, the function of the mind is to manifest the program. If my program is I do not deserve, then what's the function of the mind? Create behavior that I do not deserve. What kind of behavior is that? Negative behavior. I'll sabotage myself. And at the end, I go, Jesus, I worked real hard and I didn't get it. And then my mind would go, yep, because you don't deserve it. I go, where the heck did that come from? When I was a kid. And so The problem is this: whatever your program is that you got, the function of the mind is to turn it into reality by manifesting behavior that complements the program. So if we have 70% negative programming, then 70% of the time, which is 95% of the day, we're going to engage in behavior that is not going to help us. It's going to sabotage us. And I said, well, will I see that behavior? And then I go, that's where the problem comes from. The behavior is automatic. It only plays when you're thinking. And if you're thinking like Bill, you don't see the behavior that's coming out. So if you're sabotaging yourself, you're the only one that doesn't see it. Everybody else can see it. Like Bill, you can watch Bill, but Bill doesn't see it. So I said, but we're all Bill. So I'm saying, then my life, 95% coming from the subconscious, and 70% of that being negative, is going to manifest a complementary experience. And my life will not be happy. My life will not be healthy. I'll have problems all day. Why? Not because nature did this to me. It's because when I wasn't paying attention, my limiting program sabotaged me. I go forward in the morning thinking today is a day of success. I come home and there I see my foot is all bloody. And I go, where did this come from? And I don't notice that in my own hand is a gun. And all day long, I was shooting myself in the foot. And I come home limping, going, geez, life really is sucky. And then I look and I say, I'm the one with the gun. I sabotage myself. And so the conclusion, which I love, I'm talking a lot, but I hope the conclusion is important here, is in my book called The Honeymoon Effect. I go, what's that all about? I go, your life could go blah, blah, blah every day, blah, 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 blah every day. And then one day you meet this special person and you fall in love. And guess what? 24 hours later, your life is not blah, blah, blah anymore. Your life is like, oh God, I'm in love. Life is so beautiful. It's heaven on earth. My food is great. The music is great. Even the job I don't like is not so bad. And all of a sudden I say, in 24 hours, your life went from blah, blah, blah to heaven on earth. And the reason now we know, because science recognizes the fact. The moment you are experiencing love, stop playing the program. You stay what scientists call mindful, meaning you keep your conscious mind present instead of thinking. You know, look, you waited for someone your whole life to show up. Now they're there. Why would you be thinking? You'd be present. You go, wow, look where I am. Look at the woman or man that I'm with, and look how happy I am. You're not thinking. I say, oh, if you're not thinking, guess what? Then the subconscious program is not playing. You are staying conscious. What's conscious? Creative wishes and desires. I say, oh, so when you fell in love, what did you create? Heaven on earth. How'd that happen? I stopped playing the program and kept my hands on the wheel with conscious wishes and desires. And where do you think I drove myself? To heaven on earth. And all of a sudden it says, wow, we were capable of having heaven on earth every day. What went wrong? I said, because every day you're thinking 95%, and then the subconscious is running the show and it's got negative programs. But when you fall in love, subconscious is not working. Conscious is in control, and conscious will take you to heaven on earth. And that could happen not just when you fall in love, it could be every day of your life for as long as you live. Not are you living in a struggle, but you're living heaven on earth. And I go, it's the difference between whether I'm operating from conscious or subconscious.
So you could actually create an everlasting honeymoon effect.
Yes, yes. And for a guy who couldn't keep a relationship or anything in his life for the first 40 plus years of my life, once I started to learn this and rewrite my program, and I met my partner when I was 50, you know, it's like, oh, that's the end of your life. No, that's the beginning of my life. When I was 50, I had now gotten rid of those negative programs, open and receptive to love and not challenging it. You see, people have the honeymoon when they fall in love because they stop thinking. I say, but the honeymoon tends to fall away It does, it doesn't last. I go, why doesn't it last? I go, because it only worked when you weren't playing the program. But at some point your life gets busy. And no matter how much you love this other person, you start thinking, I got to fix the car. I have job responsibilities. I have things I have to do. I'm thinking. And I go, the moment I'm thinking, then my life is not controlled by my conscious mind. It reverts back to the subconscious. Well, when I met my partner, I didn't play subconscious because I stayed conscious and played wishes and desires and manifest the honeymoon. But at some point down the road, thinking kicks in. And the moment I start thinking, my program is not controlled by my conscious mind. Now my subconscious behavior shows up. And guess what? My partner never saw any of these negative programs, but now they start showing up because I'm let go of consciousness. Now my subconscious is running. And my partner sees these negative programs and goes, who are you? Where did that come from? And then I say, remember the story of Bill? The behavior that Bill does is not seen by Bill. So I'm in this loving relationship. And then all of a sudden I'm thinking, and my partner comes up and asks me a very nice, simple question. And I turn around and go, blah, blah, blah. And she looks at me and goes, where did that come from? I'm Bill. I say, what are you talking about? Why? I didn't even see it because it was automatic. It was my father's behavior. And that was not part of a good relationship. So all of a sudden, my partner sees the behavior that I haven't played. But now I'm playing them and they're not really good. And my partner has to go, wow, that's not the person I fell in love with. That's a different person. And then all of a sudden, the honeymoon breaks up because the honeymoon was me being my best self with my wishes and desires. But once I start playing the negative programs, because I've been thinking now, those negative programs sabotage the relationship. And I don't even see I'm doing it because they were automatic behaviors. All I see is, God, we're arguing now. I don't know where the heck that's coming from because I didn't even see I was involved. Like Bill, I didn't see I was behaving like my dad. And the honeymoon ends. And I go, oh. And I said, but what if you only had good programs in your subconscious? I go, then the honeymoon doesn't end. Because if I don't have negative programs and I start thinking and now my subconscious takes over, but it's only playing positive programs, I'm in a good place no matter whether I'm paying attention or not. So the idea is we have to recognize we've all been programmed. Nobody got here without programming. It's required to get consciousness to kick in. You have to have some basic program to start with. Consciousness can change the program later, but you still have these programs. And the idea is that 95% of our life is coming from those and not from wishes and desires. So your life isn't working right. It's not nature. It's not God. It's not the universe against you. It's your own invisible behavior that is sabotaging your life. If you adjust this behavior and change it, and then I go back and said, remember, how do I know what the behavior is? I said, your life is a printout. What is it that's not working? And whatever is not working is only because so now you have an idea what I want to change. Let's say you change the program. And I say, so what happens if I change the program? I said, then when I'm thinking, a new program is playing. But what if I put only good programs in there and wishes programs of what I want? I said, then great. You can go all day long, never pay attention, be thinking all day long, but your automatic behavior will bring in love and joy and happiness because now you have positive programs. So we have to evolve on this planet because our programming is self-destructive, and now it's human bad programming is destroying the planet. And we are facing an environmental upheaval. We're facing an extinction because human behaviors undermine the world. If we want to change it, we don't change the world, change the thinking. The world will change automatically. We are powerful, except we don't know it.
Absolutely. And this is where it's very, very, all your research and experiments are really crucial at this point, because actually it brings some hope. We can actually do something. So let me just make sure I understood correctly. So you say in order to stop the autopilot and the automatic negative programming, we can reprogram ourselves, and the secret is to be present.
If you're present, if you're present or mindful, it doesn't make a difference what your program is, because you're not going to default to the program. If you're present and mindful, you're just running because you got your hands on the wheel and you're driving toward wishes and desires. That's why the honeymoon effect worked in the first place. But the moment you start thinking, you are now allowing the subconscious program to show up, and that's where the problems come from. So you have two choices. One, stop thinking, stay mindful. I go, well, that's really hard, because our world, there's so much bombarding us with so much information and so many things we have to do, that thinking, I can't say stop thinking, because that's just natural. So if I can't stay in my conscious mind and I do default to the subconscious, then the only other thing I can do is change the program, because that allows me then, if I play a automatic program, but it's a program that supports me and manages my love and wishes and things like that, I don't even have to pay attention. My subconscious will get it for me anyway. So that is the best solution. Not staying mindful. That's easy to do for a short period, but not for a long period. The most important thing to do is to say, what is my program? What do I want to change? And how would I put a new program in? That's the destination.
And how do you put a new program in?
$1 million question. That is the biggest thing. So very briefly is simply this. The two minds, conscious and subconscious, have different functions. Conscious being creative, that's where the wishes and desires come from. Subconscious is just record playback, okay? Subconscious is habit, conscious is creative. I say, oh, habit. Oh, well, the two minds then learn in different ways. If I'm operating from conscious mind as creative, I could create new knowledge by anything, listening to our conversation, reading a self-help book, go to a lecture, just, I got a new idea. I just changed conscious mind. Subconscious mind is called habit mind, and that's the problem. The word habit means something that is a program that doesn't change, because if it changes, then it's not a habit anymore. And I say, well, there are some things I don't want to change. For example, I learned how to walk when I was 2. I want it to stay that way. I don't need to have to relearn it. I was doing good, okay? So some habits never want to change. But what if I get a bad habit? It's like, oh, well, now I need to change it. I say, but habit mind resists change. So I say, woo, how do I overcome that? And I go, it's just like a CD recorder or old-fashioned tape player. If you can push the record button, you can put in a new program. I say, what's the secret on the record button? I go, okay, number one is this. How did the subconscious mind learn in the first place? Because that was the natural way. I say, okay, first 7 years, hypnosis. My mind was operating at a low vibration theta, which is observe and record. That's what it does, hypnosis, okay? Observe and record. So if I could do hypnosis, I could change the program. I go, do I have to see a hypnotherapist? I go, no. And the reason is simple. The theta, which is the record phase of the brain's function, is a lower vibration than consciousness. So when you're at work, you have a very high vibration. A working consciousness is called beta. That's a very high vibration. When you go home and you relax, the vibrations slow down, and it's called alpha. That's called calm consciousness. But at the moment you fall asleep, guess what? Conscious mind disconnects. It's sleeping. But so the vibration of alpha slows down, and guess what? Consciousness is now off, but the next vibration is theta. Well, that's the one where the subconscious is still working. So conscious mind went to sleep, subconscious mind still present. I say, so what? I say, put the earphones on. And as you're going to bed, as well, will hear some of the stuff on the program that you're playing. But the moment conscious falls asleep, whatever is coming through the earphones is not going to conscious mind's sleeping, but it's going straight into the subconscious mind. This is called self-hypnosis. So if I have a behavior that I want to change, I could find a program at a bookstore or wherever they sell these things, self-help program. And I could find a program, whether it's relationship or health or anything you want to be a program. You can get somebody's pre-recorded a program that you would like to have to empower you. And I say, fine, you get that program, you put the earphones on, and every night when you go to bed, you put on the program. And as I said, for a short moment, you'll listen to what the program is, but ultimately you'll go to sleep, alpha shuts off. Now subconscious is listening to the program and it's now downloading. So that's called self-hypnosis. And anybody can do this at home. So you don't need a hypnotherapist. You can just get a program of what is it you're missing in your life that you want, put that program in and let it program. That's hypnosis. That's how we learn first 7 years. Now, after age 7, we still learn stuff. You learn how to drive a car. If you played an instrument, you had to learn how to play an instrument. I say, well, learning, I say, it's doing what? Practicing. You practice how to drive a car. You practice with an instrument. You're repeating. It's repeating. That's what it's based on. The more you repeat it, the more it gets downloaded as a program. Okay? So programs are habits that are acquired through repetition, exercise, doing it. What is it you want? You have to practice it, what you want. I like it because there's a new agey term that says, fake it till you make it. And what does that mean? It says, well, basically, let's say I'm very unhappy. My life is not making me happy. I'm very sad. I don't like my life. It's not happy. I say, okay, what should I do? Well, every day, as many times as you could say it, every time you get a moment, you go, I am happy. I am happy. And I go, it sounds kind of funny because your life is not happy and you're saying, I am happy. I say, but you're repeating it and you repeat it and you repeat it and you repeat it. It's like playing an instrument. There's a point where after so much repetition, you don't have to repeat it. Now it's a habit. So I say, you repeat every day as many times as you can. I am happy. I am happy. No matter how unhappy you are, you repeat it. I say, why is it important? Because I say, after repetition, the subconscious has a program, I am happy. And I go, so I say, and what's the function of the mind? To make my program real. So I'm happy. What do you think my mind's going to create in a world situation, an environment for me where it's like, I am happy, without you even thinking about it. It will do it automatically. But you have to put in, I am happy, otherwise it's not going to work. So first phase of downloading a program, hypnosis, theta, you could put earphones on, self-hypnosis. Second phase, after age 7, you learn by repetition, making new habit. So whatever is repetition, repeating and exercising over and over again, a new behavior, when you keep repeating it, it will be downloaded as a new behavior, and that's it. Now, both of those take time. So the last thing is there a faster way? And I go, God, we are lucky. There is a faster way. And it's called energy psychology. And I go, what's relevant? I go, the world is in a very bad place. We're facing an extinction because of human behavior. There's an old-fashioned phrase that says, necessity is the mother of invention. We have a necessity to change our behavior as fast as we can because we're going extinct with the behavior we're playing. So with that necessity, all of a sudden comes this new form of energy psychology, which is like a super learning experience. It engages super learning in the brain, which means you can download a new behavior in minutes. So all of a sudden it says, oh my God, I don't have to do the long repetition. I don't have to do the long practice part. I could just learn a new way of downloading a program into subconscious, which is called energy psychology. Let me just help people very quickly, and that is this. My website, very simple, brucelipton.com, has under resources about 30 different modalities of energy psychology. I suggest that you just go to the website and start looking at each one and seeing which one appeals to you. And if one appeals to you, try it. Because with these processes, we can rewrite the subconscious, not in days and weeks, but you can rewrite it in minutes. And so we are being called upon to take power back. To do that, you have to take the reprogramming and put in what you want, not the one you downloaded from your family and your community. And this offers you a rapid process of rewriting your beliefs. You can walk away after 15, 20 minutes with a whole new belief. And so this is very exciting, because the hypnosis and the repetition, that's time consuming. But energy modality, once you have what you want to program, it's a very short process. Installable.
Are you hearing? I can.
Yes.
Yes. So I get very touched hearing you talking, Bruce, because there's so many people, including myself, who's a little bit concerned on behalf of the world, who can feel the urgency and feel that something needs to happen und schnell.
Yes.
Because it seems like there's a small window of opportunity, or another 1,000 years of Middle Ages. So
it's not even what's facing us is not 1,000 years in the future. What's facing us is a few decades into the future, a couple of decades, 2 or 3, couple of decades. Civilization is already, research from NASA, the big institute here in the States, revealed that industrial civilization, that's the civilization we're living in, is facing what they say an irreversible collapse in the next couple of decades. It's falling apart. Here in the USA, it's falling apart under Trump. And the thing is, well, I'm not a fan of Trump as an evolutionary biologist. Guess what? He's causing an upheaval to make people say, this is not what we want. And all of a sudden, he's breaking the structure so that a new structure can be created. So he's doing a job that he doesn't even know he's doing. He's destroying a system so we can build a more sustainable one. So I'm not like excited by seeing him do this. I know it's necessary, but already having transitioned into where we're going to go, now looking back at this going, wow, that really hurts to watch. This is the way people have to learn. That's what they're going to have to learn. And so the US is in a state of either we learn from what's going on and create a better world, or, as I said, it's a very short time between here and the extinction process of humanity on this planet. It's very short, within a century.
Yeah, that's why it's so refreshing and uplifting to hear that there are actually things that every person can do.
Yeah,
That's within our reach, and that is possible and doable, and that will not only change our own lives, but that will change the world.
100%. As I said, look, in my first 40 years as a research scientist, I didn't believe in the stuff I'm talking about. I was talking about genes and proteins and cells, no spirituality, no consciousness and all that. But once I learned, it was like, oh my God, now that I have this knowledge, what can I do with it? I rewrote these negative issues that I got from my family. With the help of my partner, Margaret, who I've been with 75. And the relevance about that is, over that time period, both of us rewrote any of the negative programming that we got. And I say, so why is it relevant? Because if we put in programming of heaven on earth, which we did, then I have to tell you the simple truth. For 20 plus years now, in the middle of all the crap that's going on this planet, Margaret and I have a honeymoon experience. It hasn't changed for 20 plus years. Why? Because even if I'm not, paying attention and my subconscious is playing, now that it's playing programs that manifest wishes and desires anyway. So I'm manifesting heaven without even making an effort to manifest heaven, because it's an automatic program now. And this is what we all need to learn. We have to wake up and get out of this negative programming that is causing our own extinction. And this means it's time for us to take our power back. And the science is now fulfilling that understanding. The science of epigenetics is how consciousness controls your genetics. The science of quantum biophysics, quantum physics, is revealing how consciousness is creating our life experience. That's a primary principle in quantum physics. And let me just emphasize, quantum physics is the most valid, truthful science on planet Earth. There is no science that has been tested more or proven to be true than quantum physics. So that's a given. I say, and the first principle of quantum physics is consciousness is creating our life experience. I go, well, then if I change consciousness, I change life experience? The answer is absolutely. If you don't like your life experience, it's a matter of just changing consciousness, not changing our body, not changing the world, just changing consciousness and manifesting a different world. So right in the middle of a country that's falling apart, Margaret and I are here going, hey, heaven on earth. We live heaven on earth in the middle. Why? Because our programming gives us the consciousness of creating that experience. And we do it whether we're thinking or we're not thinking, because both conscious and subconscious now have the same wishes and desires. And that's the beautiful part. Once you program that subconscious, you don't even have to work on it. It's automatic. It's automatic right now, but it's automatically playing negative things. If you put positive things in there, it will be automatic playing positive things. And the cool part is that means you don't have to spend your life working on it. It will do it automatically like it's doing right now. And that means you could just be here to celebrate the idea that we came here experience and one that we're living. One we're living is not our experience. It's been programmed. Programming. And what's interesting is this. The idea that programs control our lives is not new. For 400 years, the Jesuits have told their followers, give me a child until it is 7, and I will show you the man. For 400 years, they knew if I can program the first 7 years, that will determine the character of the rest of your life. Well, this is what the biology is revealing right now. But the idea that programming controls our life, that's not new. That's 400 years old. I go, and what's the relevance about that? I go, the leadership of this world has known about this programming for 400 years. They're programming children faster today than they did before. When you see an infant who could barely walking around with an iPad and working on an iPad, and they're an infant, it's like programming. And we have to now take the responsibility of that programming and give it back to ourselves and stop with the idea of buying it from other people who gave us programs that all it did was disempower us anyway. There's really, this is the time for heaven on earth, and heaven on earth is a consciousness. And when you operate from that, you manifest it.
Yeah, that is, I think that a lot of people are talking about a paradigm shift that in this era that is equivalent to when we went from thinking the earth was flat to knowing that it's round. And yeah. I guess that the paradigm shift is this shift in consciousness from programming to actually taking leadership for our creation.
Yeah, and this is why I'm so happy you let me talk to your audience, because basically we have been programmed with the belief that we are victims. Everything is like, oh, we have no power. Oh, nature controls, God controls, we're just victims. That's the program. And the fact is, that's the problem itself, the program, because we are creators. We're spiritual entities coming into this body to manifest reality. I mean, it was interesting because I said my first 40 years, I didn't believe in spirituality. And once I started to get into spirituality, what I started to recognize is, wait a minute, why have a spirit in a body? Because at first I didn't believe in spirituality. Then I find, in quantum physics, it's called the field, the energy, and religion or so, it's called spirit. I got a field, spirit's the same thing. Quantum physics is telling us about the energy that shapes who we are. and ask myself a very important question. The moment I recognize I am a broadcast into this body, I said to myself, why have a spirit and a body? Why not just be the spirit? And 50 trillion cells. The answer came right up to my head. And they're kind of funny because when I heard the answer, I had to laugh. But the answer, I asked the question, why have a spirit and a body? Why not just be a spirit? And 50 trillion cells came up and asked me a question. Bruce, if you're just a spirit, what does chocolate taste like? And all of a sudden I realized, oh my goodness, this is a machine. Eyes translate into vision, ears translate into sound, smell, taste, touch, pain. I said, this is a device that reads the world and converts it into consciousness. Okay? So if I'm just a spirit, what does chocolate taste like? I don't know. Why? Because chocolate came from the cells in my body that tasted the chocolate and converted into a vibration, which is where consciousness comes in. What does sunset look like? Well, if you don't have eyes, you can't see a sunset. And all of a sudden you start to say, oh, then having a body is an enhancement to spirit. Spirit doesn't know, what does love feel like? I can imagine love. I can say all the words, love. But if I can't feel love, then I don't know what it really represents. But I say, oh, love in a body is a feeling, because the chemistry like of dopamine and the pleasure coming through your body, you turn that experience into a sensation, okay? And all of a sudden I say, so the body gives me sensation. The body gives me ability to move and make things. So the conclusion is very important. The conclusion is this, that a body is an enhancement to spirit, because using the body, the spirit can manipulate a universe and create and manifest and have senses and these experiences. And I go, oh my God, you don't die and go to heaven. You are born into this body so you can manifest heaven. What's manifesting? The feelings, the joy, all of this is chemistry and biology translated into vibration. So, well, we came here and most people look around going, well, I wouldn't think this is heaven. It looks more like hell. I go, oh, that's because you're buying somebody else's creation. And if you start creating from your program, then, as I said, you fall in love 24 hours later, it's heaven on earth. It doesn't take very long just to let go of the program and start operating with the creative mind. And we recognize, yeah, we care for heaven on earth. And well, at least the last 25 years so far out of the 75, I've been manifesting the desired life of, it is working. From a guy who never believed in any of this stuff, is like, oh my God, it works. I don't have a doctor. I haven't had a doctor. I haven't seen a doctor about any illness per se for 25 years. Okay, or more. I don't have a doctor because my mind it's not going there. Okay, and I am creating, and you are creating. And the question is, what are you creating? Do you like it? You don't like it? Don't blame the universe. Go inside and reprogram. We are just manifesting programs.
It's beautiful. So I have to ask you this question because you're on this particular show. So when I say that the future is feminine, what does that bring up for you? Do you, what do you think about that idea?
The future is feminine?
Mm-hmm.
No, the future is androgynous. The idea is this: men and women are a separation of what was once a unity. And so in early organisms, they have both characteristics, male and female, okay? And they have different functions. Female is generative. Female is creation in that sense, okay? It's consciousness, it's all that kind of stuff like that. Male is support. Look at the body. The proteins of a body give the shape to a man. Protein is mechanism, and a woman's body is shaped by lipid, fat, but that's generative. That's energy. That's what it's all about. Okay, The two of them work together. My skeletal and my muscular system is giving me protection and support for my creative consciousness. But in evolution, women took on the role, and that's why their voice is so important, because they have a whole different understanding. Support. That's what the skeletal muscular system is, support and protect. So we subdivide the function. Now I say, well, should women run this thing? I go, not without the men. Should men run this thing? Not without the women. And the idea was, we did have a matriarchal society, and then it was overtaken by a patriarchal society. So we did the feminine part. We're finishing the masculine part. And the conclusion is what? Not to go back to the feminine part, but to bring the feminine part back in harmony with the masculine part, and start to recognize they work in harmony, not one over the other. And that's why is really more in the role of women than it is in men. It's very interesting. The United States was founded on the principle of a utopian society. In the Age of Enlightenment, there were philosophers that talked about a utopian world. And Rousseau, one of the bigger philosophers in this time, came up with the idea of a utopian world by studying Native Americans, because they were living in a utopian world where Europe was in a class system of upper class and lower class, and people owning each other and all that. In North America, nobody owned those people. They could do whatever they wanted. They lived in a different world. So Europeans came to North America to live the character of the Native Americans, okay, which balanced spirit and matter, because in their world, everything was spiritual and everything was made out of matter. It was always, everything was spiritual. And this was the philosophy that brought people here. And the idea about it was, and this was the important part, the American government was based on the Native Americans that were here. Their government, they had 500 years of a United States before white people got here. So when the Europeans came, they wanted to model their government, and here's the failure. We built a government based on the Native American principle. We have a leader, we have a house, we have a Congress with two houses, a House of Representatives and a Senate, the higher house. I go, that was already here. The Native Americans had that. They have a chief, okay? They have a house with representatives. They have a house that's called the Senate, but it was different, and I'll tell you why. First of all, number one, in many of the tribes, only the women voted for the chief, only them. And you say, why? Because if men vote for a chief, they vote for who's the strongest badass. But when women vote for a chief, they want to know who's the equivalent of a father. We need protection, but we need guidance from a father. So if there's just a warrior, then that fails. And that's what men would vote for, okay? Women vote for a complete leader, okay? Number two, the second and highest house in the Native American government wasn't called the Senate, it was called the Council of Grandmothers. It was that house that determined war and peace and the fundamental direction of where the tribe was going to go, from grandmothers. I said, so what's irrelevant? Well, the Europeans came over here and they had no respect for women in the first place. So the idea to build a government, but then put the women in that level in European consciousness didn't work. And as a result, we ended up with a European model instead of the Native American model. I say, what does it result in? America is a military country because of the men doing this. And now it's time for bring the balance back, bring the feminine back. It's a bigger picture than just a support protection. It's a vegetative picture, creation. It's, you know, nutrition. Women did all the, they're there with the bow and arrows and stuff like that, you know, but the women. And so where are we coming? So, well, we've left the women out for all these years. And now Me Too generation, the new generation of women coming back, not to eliminate the men, but for the first time to come back and say, it only works when these two come back together again, because one or the other is not whole. Together is whole.
Absolutely. And I so agree on that. But when I say the future is feminine, I mean this paradigm shift of, letting the inner come before the outer. That we used to, the masculine is this outer world dominating, but, turning it upside down and say, well, the yin aspect is actually should be the first step. And then we can act accordingly to the yin. So, it's more broad than just men and women in the way I see it. And also this creative part, that we can create, and that we can create something that is in alignment with the laws of nature, in alignment with what's in the interest of future generations.
Yes.
In that sense, I think it's at least more feminine than it has been. But of course, always in co-creation with the masculine.
Yeah. But the evolution that we're facing is we've done this patriarchal thing till it's almost killed us.
Yeah.
And either we change or we go extinct. Those are the two choices on the table. There's only those two. But to change that and to survive means you cannot keep thinking the way we've been thinking, because the thinking that we've been using is causing the extinction. So that's why I'm talking about, like the energy psychology is coming. Yeah, because we got to change our thinking very quickly as a global population. And move into a different direction. Otherwise, the writing is already on the wall. Extinction is looming. And as I said, it's not 1,000 years from now, it's decades. And so this is the time for us to either wake up or, hey, it was really nice, I'll see you around, because this game is over at some point.
It is. I have talked I have enjoyed our talk so much, but I have one last thing that I would like to cover. And that's actually something that I talk now on behalf of all the people who have heard this idea that you shape your own life and that you can create your life with your thoughts, and who feel terribly guilty because they manifested cancer or they manifested something that was highly undesirable. And, I actually want to thank you, because last time you were in Copenhagen, I had just lost my 7-year-old son to cancer. And I was in the room with you, and you were talking for 2 days about epigenetics. And at that point, I still felt terribly, terribly guilty. I thought, I'm the mother. How did I contribute to this creation? What was I thinking? Did I eat something? What program did I run? And I came up to you in the break, and you were very healing in what you said to me. And that's why I would like you to repeat it to all the people who listen to this, who might be in that situation that an illness or a child happened, something to a child. So it's important as part of this, I think, that you also mention what you said to me. Maybe you can't remember, but I'm sure you have something to say to this perspective.
Well, there's a couple of things in here. Number one is each of us comes in with our own spirit. So it's your child, but their spirit. And as I said, when we have a life, we send information from the spiritual realm into our body, and then we send information back to the source, so that every previous time we've been on this planet, because bodies come and go, but the spirit's always there. And so the antennas that can download that spirit, then they're back. But I said, but they came with a history already. They didn't come just fresh. And so whatever has been in their history, they're going to bring it into their world as well. So part of it is, hey, look, you weren't there necessarily that you're aware of for their previous history, but you're seeing something that's unfolding here that had nothing to do with you. It had to do with their spirit. So that's very important. But the more important thing I'd like to leave with is simply this, and that is the words blame, shame, guilt, victim, they all share one very important fact, and that is this. You have to have some awareness, and then in spite of that awareness, do something contrary. In other words, if I know I have to do something to make it right, but then I choose to do something different, then that's my choice. That's my guilt, my blame, my shame. But if I didn't know how things work, nobody told me, then I don't have any knowledge of how it worked. And so whatever I did wasn't based on knowledge at all, because no one gave me that knowledge. It was an experiment. What the hell? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, okay? But I'm going to say, can I say, if something went wrong, can I be ashamed? And I go, no. If you didn't know that what you did the way evolved, how can I blame you? In other words, let's look at it this way. My car is called standard shift. It's not automatic. You've got to shift the gears. And most people don't, these days, don't know how to drive that. So I say to somebody, oh, take my car and go to town and get something and come back. And they say, I don't know how to drive stick. I say, that's all, just take the car. And they go in the car jerking back and forth and they leave. And then they call me from town saying, I'm sorry, the car is broken. It doesn't work anymore. Point. Can I now yell at them and say, you stupid idiot, you ruined my car? No. Why? They already told me they didn't know how to use the car, and I said, go ahead and use it anyway. That was my responsibility, not their responsibility, because they didn't know. So what you don't know, you can't be blamed for. You can't be guilty for. You can't have shame for. You didn't even know. So whatever you did, you just did because whatever other people were doing. And I say, so the point about it is this: before you have knowledge of something and something goes wrong, I cannot blame you, shame you, put guilt on you, victim on you, whatever. I can't do that. That's not legal, because those words say, oh, you already knew the right way, but you chose to do it differently. If you didn't know the right way, then your actions are not based on right or wrong. You didn't even know right or wrong. So whatever happened in the past, if you had no knowledge of what we're talking about at this minute, then you cannot use shame, blame, guilt. That doesn't work because you had no knowledge. But here comes the part. But now that we've talked about it, from here on in, now you have some responsibility, because now we're giving you how it works. And if you understand how it works, then all of a sudden it says, oh, well, then you have, you have to follow this understanding, and then it will work. And if you decide not to follow it, then I might come back and say, well, I have to blame you because you already knew the right way, but you decided to do it different. But if you didn't know the right way, I cannot use the word blame. I cannot use the word guilt. I cannot use the word shame. So here's the point. Whatever we just talked about today, if you didn't have this knowledge beforehand, anything that happened back there cannot be described using guilt, blame, shame, victim, and all that. Why? So let go of that. If you didn't have any knowledge, you cannot be responsible. But once you get the knowledge, now you have some personal responsibility, because you know there's the right way. And if you don't do the right way, that was a choice. But beforehand, it wasn't a choice. You had no knowledge. One says, let go of the past, because it was all done without any knowledge. And I say, look, knowledge is power. We all say that. But then I also say, equally, a lack of knowledge is a lack of power. If you didn't have knowledge of what you were talking about, then you were powerless in everything that happened. And I can't blame anybody or put a label on them as guilty or anything like that. They didn't have any knowledge. But we talked about some interesting knowledge today that if we start to understand this, then we move into the future slightly different. We move into the future with a mission and a vision and a way to do it. And that's why I so appreciate this opportunity to be in this podcast with you, darling. You are so wonderful. Thank you.
No, thank you. And I want to finish with two thoughts. One thought is, well, we will, if we put in love in our consciousness, in our minds, instead of guilt and shame and fear, I mean,
yes.
At least we have done that. So then we might not be in control of what's to happen, but we have done our part. We have taken our leadership for co-creating, and then the result is up to the future, what wants to happen. But at least I think that we can all do that. That's the leadership we need to take today. And I really appreciate your pioneering work in having the doing all the scientific work that supports this idea, because I think it makes a big difference that this is not just woo-woo beliefs or something to believe. It's backed by modern science. So What's not to, what's to discuss? Let's just go ahead and do it.
Well, this is the idea. As I said, I came from a totally different belief system, and anything I've changed after that was based on the knowledge that the science provided. And by following that science, I've transitioned from hell on earth to heaven on earth by changing myself. And this is the important part about the evolution that we're facing. This is a participatory evolution. In other words, all of us are participants. You can't just sit down in your house and wait until the evolution and look out the window and go, oh, evolution is happening. I say, no, we have to evolve. And that's why this message becomes very personal. It says, yeah, you want to experience this, then you have to be a participant. You can't be an observer. You have to be a participant. And this is everything that we just talked about today, Kirsten.
It is. And so the people who come to your workshops around the world, what will they learn? Energy psychology, or what will you teach them?
Well, I'm going to teach them the nature of the biology, the nature of conscious, the nature of subconscious, how we got programmed, how stress is the cause of our illnesses, and understanding the mechanics of stress. We take power back again, because people think genes cause illness. Less than 1% of disease is connected to genes. Where's all the disease coming from? Consciousness, not genes. And if we understand that, then we are empowered to take that consciousness and walk away with a different world when we understand it, than just to be a victim and walk around going, I don't know what's going on. It's like, no, there's reasons. And if we understand it, we have power. Knowledge is power. And that's what I hope to offer.
You certainly did, Bruce. I'm so, so grateful for all your insights, all your work, and for you being a living, vivid example of the vitality and joy and love. That's just, it's just really inspiring to see who you are.
Wow,
the result
it's
of this
more
thinking.
it's more inspiring to be me, who never believed in any of this stuff, and then turn around and go, oh my God, I live in heaven. I do. My life now. And from a guy who didn't believe in it to this state, is like, whoa, this is fabulous. And that's why I want everyone to catch on, because it's not just a new age thing. As you mentioned, we're talking a fundamental scientific understanding of who we are and how we are creating.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate. Looking forward to receiving you here.
I look forward to seeing you, and I so appreciate all of the people who are going to listen to this, because each one of them is a cultural creative. Each one of them is somebody who can change culture by changing their creativity. And that's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.